Billionaire buys two young women at auction. Days later, they marry his sons. Amanda Wilson held her younger sister's hand tightly as they walked through the luxurious hall of the most expensive hotel in New York City. Her heart raced when she heard the charity auction being announced. They never imagined they'd come to this point. Then the auction began, and the two offered themselves for charity dinners as a last desperate attempt to save the orphanage where they grew up. With business degrees but unemployed for months, it was the only way they could think of to get the money needed to prevent the closure of St. James Children's Home. Lot number 15, announced the auctioneer. Two special dinners with the young ladies Amanda and Jessica Wilson, business administrators and former students of St. James Children's Home. Amanda, 26, wore a pink dress borrowed from the orphanage's director, while Jessica, 23, wore a simple yet elegant beige outfit. Both tried to hide their nerves as they were introduced. $500, someone shouted from the back. $1,000, said another. The bids slowly climbed until they reached $5,000. Amanda breathed a sigh of relief. It was already more than they expected. But then a deep, firm voice cut through the air. $50,000. Silence fell over the room. Every head turned to see who had made such an outrageous bid. It was a man around 50 with salt and pepper hair slicked back, wearing an impeccable dark suit. His calculating gaze swept over the two young women as if assessing an investment. "Mr. Richard Hammond offers $50,000, repeated the auctioneer, visibly surprised. Amanda felt her legs tremble. At the back of the room she spotted two young men with similar features, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Both wore elegant suits and appeared to be around the sister's age. "Do I hear any higher bids?" asked the auctioneer, pausing briefly. "Sold for $50,000 to Mr. Richard Hammond." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. After the auction, Richard Hammond approached the sisters with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He was an imposing man, owner of one of the country's largest fortunes, known for his real estate and tech ventures. "Miss Wilsons, it's a pleasure to meet you," he said, kissing each of their hands. "I'm Richard Hammond." "Mr. Hammond," Amanda replied, trying to stay composed. "We truly appreciate your contribution to the orphanage." "Yes, thank you," Jessica added, her voice barely a whisper. "No need to thank me just yet," Richard said with an enigmatic smile. "I'd like to speak with you privately. I have a proposal that might interest you." The sisters exchanged nervous glances. There was something in his tone that unsettled them. "What kind of proposal?" Amanda asked. "You both have business degrees, correct? And from what I've heard, you've been unemployed for months," Richard said, revealing details about their lives that hadn't been mentioned during the auction. "How do you know that?" Jessica finally found her voice to ask. "I did some research before the auction. I always investigate before doing business," he replied smoothly. "I have two executive openings in my companies, well-paid positions that could not only save the orphanage but secure your futures for a long time." Amanda's heart pounded. It was exactly what they needed to hear. "What's the catch?" she asked warily. "Clever," Richard smirked. "The condition is simple. You'd have to live at my residence for 6 months to learn the family business. It's a complete immersion in the business world. Think of it as an intensive internship." "Live in your house?" repeated Jessica, alarmed. "I have a large mansion with private bedrooms and complete privacy," explained Richard. "My two sons also live there. It would be a normal family living arrangement." Amanda looked at Jessica, who seemed ready to refuse. But then she thought of the 15 boys sleeping at the orphanage that night, unaware it might be their last time. "Can I ask what the salary would be?" she questioned. $15,000 a month for each of you, plus benefits," replied Richard, watching the women's reactions. Jessica nearly choked. It was more than they'd earned together in the last 6 months. "We need to talk," said Amanda. "Of course, you have until tomorrow to decide. If you accept, you can start on Monday," said Richard, handing her a card. "My driver will pick you up at 8 in the morning." When Richard walked away, the sisters exchanged silent glances. In the background, they could see two young men approaching the businessman, clearly upset. "Dad, we need to talk," one of them said, his voice tense. Later, Daniel, now's not the time, Richard replied curtly. It's exactly the time, insisted the other young man, who looked identical to the first. What was that about? Mind your own business, Michael. I know what I'm doing, Richard said, walking away from his sons. Daniel and Michael Hammond were identical 25-year-old twins, but their personalities were complete opposites. Daniel was a workaholic, with a business degree from the country's top university, and already worked in his father's companies. Michael was more sensitive, an artist at heart, with a degree in fine arts, but pressured by his father to get involved in business. That night, the Wilson sisters barely slept. They talked until dawn, weighing the pros and cons. Mandy, this is really strange, said Jessica. Why would a wealthy man like him be interested in us? I think it's strange too, Jess. But think of the kids. If we don't do anything, they'll be on the streets next week, Amanda replied. What if it's a trap? What if he has other intentions? He has sons our age. Maybe he's sincere. And $15,000 each. In 6 months, we could save the orphanage and still have money left to improve the place. Jessica sighed. She knew her sister was right, but something in her gut screamed danger. All right, she finally gave in, but if we sense things are going bad, we leave immediately. Deal, said Amanda, hugging her sister. The next morning at 8 sharp, a black Cadillac stopped in front of their small apartment. The driver, a middle-aged man named Robert, was kind and polite, easing the women's nerves a little. Mr. Richard is a good employer, Robert said during the ride. I've worked for him for 15 years. Never had any problems. What about his sons? Asked Jessica. Ah, the boys. Robert smiled through the rearview mirror. Daniel is just like his father in business. Very serious, works too much. Michael is different, sweeter, likes painting, music, always been a bit rebellious. Do they live alone with their father? Amanda asked. Yes, their mother passed away 10 years ago. Cancer. It was very hard on everyone. The Hammond mansion was in the most upscale neighborhood of New York City, an imposing 3-story building with well-kept gardens. As they entered, the sisters were intimidated by the luxury, marble, crystal, artwork on the walls. Welcome to my home, Richard said, greeting them at the entrance. I hope you'll be comfortable here. It's very beautiful, Amanda commented, trying not to seem awestruck. Robert will show you to your rooms. Get settled, and then we'll discuss work, Richard said. The bedrooms were on the 2nd floor, side by side, each with a private bathroom and a view of the garden. They were bigger than the entire apartment they used to live in. I can't believe we're going to live here, whispered Jessica. Remember what we agreed. We're here to work and save the orphanage, nothing more, said Amanda, though she herself was impressed. During their first lunch, they got to know Richard's sons better. Daniel was polite but cold, treating them like employees. Michael was warmer, asking about the orphanage and showing genuine interest. What you do is admirable, said Michael. It must be hard seeing children in vulnerable situations. It's our responsibility, Amanda replied. We were raised there too. Really? Daniel looked up from his plate, interested for the first time. Our parents died when I was 12 and Jess was 9. The director, Martha, took us in and raised us like her own, Amanda explained. That's why it's so important to you, Michael said with a kind smile. Richard observed the entire conversation in silence, his expression unreadable to the sisters. During their first week, the sisters were introduced to Richard's businesses. Amanda was assigned to the real estate division, while Jessica was directed to the technology sector. Both quickly stood out, demonstrating solid knowledge and innovative ideas. Daniel, initially skeptical, began respecting Jessica's work when she identified security flaws in the company's system that could have caused million-dollar losses. How did you find this? Daniel asked, reviewing the report Jessica had prepared. I ran some basic tests on the system. I noticed gaps in client data protection, Jessica explained, blushing slightly. This is expert-level work. Do you have a background in tech? No, but I've always loved computers. I took some online courses, she replied, not mentioning the nights she had spent studying while unemployed. Daniel was impressed. For the first time, he looked at Jessica not as an intruder, but as a capable colleague. Meanwhile, Amanda discovered that Michael spent hours in the mansion's attic, painting in secret. One day she went up to bring him a snack and found dozens of magnificent canvases. "You paint beautifully," she said, admiring a landscape of the countryside outside New York City. "My father doesn't like me wasting time on this," Michael replied bitterly. "He wants me involved in the business." "And you don't want to be?" "I do, but I also want to keep my art. I don't see why I have to choose." Amanda understood the conflict. She too had given up dreams to care for her sister and the orphanage. "Maybe you don't have to choose," she said gently. "Maybe you just need to find the right way to balance both." Michael smiled, feeling like someone finally understood him. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. But the peace didn't last long. During dinner, Amanda found forgotten documents on Richard's desk. They were old contracts from 20 years ago, with the name William Wilson prominently displayed. "Jess, you need to see this," Amanda called, showing her the papers. "That's our father's name," Jessica whispered, turning pale. "Exactly. And look here, he was Mr. Richard's business partner." The sisters exchanged glances, sensing they had uncovered something important. Why had Richard never mentioned knowing their father? That night, they couldn't sleep. By morning, they decided to confront him. "Mr. Richard, we need to talk," Amanda said, holding the documents. Richard looked at the papers and sighed deeply. "Where did you find these?" "They were on your desk last night," Jessica answered. "Why didn't you tell us you knew our father?" Richard stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the garden. "William Wilson was my best friend and business partner for 15 years, he finally said. "We built this empire together." "What happened?" asked Amanda. "There was a disagreement in business. William wanted to expand into areas I considered risky. We had a terrible fight and he left the company," explained Richard. "Our father was never rich," said Jessica, skeptical. "Not after he left the firm. He only took what was legally his, which wasn't much compared to what the company became," Richard admitted. "Why did you bring us here?" Amanda questioned. Richard turned to them with a vulnerable expression they had never seen before. "Because I feel guilty. When I found out William had passed and that you were alone, I should have helped. But my pride got in the way. Now, seeing you fight for the children's home, I realize you inherited his good heart." The sisters fell silent, processing the information. "You're the daughters of my best friend," Richard continued. "I feel I owe you far more than I can give." "We don't want charity," Amanda said firmly. "And it's not charity." "You prove every day that you deserve to be here on your own merit," Richard replied. When Daniel and Michael learned the truth, they were shocked. "Dad, why did you never tell us about Uncle William?" asked Daniel. "I remember him," said Michael. "He always gave me candy when he visited. He disappeared when I was about 7. "He didn't disappear. I pushed him away," Richard admitted remorsefully. "This changes everything," Daniel said, looking at the sisters with new eyes. "Changes what?" Jessica asked. "You're not employees, you're family," Michael answered, emotional. The revelation shifted the household dynamic. The 4 young people grew closer, without the formal barriers that had existed before. Jessica and Daniel began working together more intensely, and she continued to impress with her technical discoveries. During a security audit, she found hackers attempting to breach the system. "Daniel, you need to see this," Jessica said, pointing at the computer. "Someone's trying to access client data." "How long has this been happening?" Daniel asked, alarmed. "From what I can tell, at least a week. But I managed to trace and block it," Jessica replied, typing quickly. "You just saved the company from disaster," Daniel said, looking at her with admiration. "I just did my job." "No, you did much more than that." For the first time, Daniel gave Jessica a genuine smile, and she felt butterflies in her stomach. Meanwhile, Amanda and Michael bonded over art. She began visiting him regularly in the attic, and he painted a piece inspired by her work with the children at the home. "It's beautiful," Amanda said, studying the canvas. "You have an incredible gift." "Thank you. You inspire me," Michael replied, blushing. "I inspire you?" "Your dedication, your strength to fight for what you believe in. I wish I had that courage." "You do. You just need to use it," Amanda said, gently touching his arm. Richard watched the growing connections with satisfaction, though it began to unsettle the sisters. There was something calculated in his gaze that made them uneasy. Their suspicions were confirmed during a corporate event. Amanda was speaking with some executives when a man approached. "Amanda? Amanda Wilson?" the man said, surprised. "Yes, that's me. I'm sorry, you are—" "Kevin Miller. We dated in college, remember?" Amanda tensed. Kevin had been her first boyfriend, and they ended things abruptly when he took a job in another city. "Of course, Kevin. How are you?" "Good, good. But I need to tell you something," Kevin said, glancing around, "about the real reason we broke up." "That's not necessary," Amanda said, uncomfortable. "Yes, it is. You deserve to know the truth. I didn't get the job in another city. Someone paid me to stay away from you." Amanda felt the ground drop beneath her. "What do you mean?" "A wealthy man said he knew your family. He paid off my college debts and offered me a job right here in New York City, on the condition that I never contacted you again." "What man?" Amanda asked, already suspecting the answer. "Richard Hammond." Amanda felt a mix of anger and betrayal. Richard had been manipulating her life for years. That night, the sisters confronted Richard, demanding answers. "Is it true you paid Kevin to stay away from me?" Amanda asked, furious. Richard sighed, knowing the truth had finally come out. "Yes, it's true." "Why?" Amanda shouted. "Because that boy wasn't good for you. He was in debt, with no prospects. You deserved better." "That wasn't your decision," Jessica said, defending her sister. "Maybe not, but I felt responsible for you both. When I found out William had passed, I started keeping an eye on your lives discreetly. I helped with scholarships, job opportunities, protection from people who might harm you." The sisters were shocked. Their entire lives had been manipulated by Richard. "You controlled our whole lives," Amanda said, tears in her eyes. "I tried to protect you." "You brought us here on purpose, didn't you?" Jessica questioned. "You already knew who we were at the auction." "Yes. When I heard you were there, I saw the chance to finally do what I should have done years ago. Help you directly." "And your sons? Did they know?" Amanda asked. "No. They knew nothing." Daniel and Michael, who had overheard the conversation, entered the room, horrified. "Dad, how could you do this?" Daniel said. "You manipulated their lives like they were dolls," Michael added. "I did what I thought was best." "For who?" Daniel asked. "For them or for you?" Richard had no answer. "We want nothing more to do with you," Amanda said. "We're leaving tomorrow." "No, please. Let me explain further," Richard begged. "You've explained enough," Jessica replied. Richard's sons stood by the sisters. "Dad, you were wrong. Very wrong," Daniel said. "They have every right to leave," Michael finished. That night, the four young adults talked for hours. Daniel and Michael apologized for their father's behavior, even though it wasn't their fault. "You don't need to apologize," Amanda said. "You didn't know." "But he's our father," Michael said. "We feel responsible." "Don't. You've always been honest with us," Jessica replied. "We don't want you to go," Daniel admitted. "Neither do I," Michael said, looking at Amanda. "It's not about you, it's about honesty. How can we trust anything that happens here?" Amanda asked. "Because what I feel for you is real," Michael said, surprising everyone. "Michael," Amanda began. "No, I need to say this. Since you arrived, you've changed my life. You made me see I can be as strong as you, that I can fight for what I believe in. And Daniel hesitated, looking at Jessica. "I've never admired anyone as much as I admire you. Your intelligence, your determination. You make me want to be a better person." The sisters were moved but still hurt by the revelations. "We don't know if what we feel is real or just the result of your father's manipulations," Jessica said. "I know what I feel is real," Daniel insisted. "Dad may have planned for us to meet, but he couldn't plan the way my heart races when you smile. Or how I feel when you listen to me talk about my dreams," Michael added. "We need time to think," Amanda said. "We understand," Michael replied. The next morning, the sisters packed their bags to leave. But before leaving, Richard asked for one last conversation. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know something," he said. "I didn't do all this to manipulate you. I did it because the guilt was eating me alive." "What guilt?" asked Amanda. "When William left the company, he didn't just take what was legally his. He only took what I allowed him to take. I could have been more generous, more fair. But my pride wouldn't let me." "What does that mean?" questioned Jessica. "It means you're entitled to much more than I offered. William's share in the company is worth about $100 million today." The sisters were shocked. "Are you offering us money to buy us off?" asked Amanda, indignant. "No, I'm offering what was rightfully yours. What should have belonged to your father." "We don't want it," said Jessica. "It's not about wanting. It's about justice. I'll transfer the amount to you whether you stay or not." "Why would you do that?" asked Amanda. "Because I finally understood that I can't buy forgiveness. I can't manipulate feelings. I can only do what's right." The sisters fell silent, processing the information. "We want you to transfer the money to the orphanage," Amanda finally said. "No. You deserve the inheritance." "It's not inheritance if you're giving it out of guilt. We want it to go to the orphanage. That way you'll honor our father's memory the right way." Richard smiled for the first time with genuine satisfaction. "He'd be proud of you." "We hope so," Jessica replied. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Even with the money transfer settled, the sisters still decided to leave. They felt they needed distance to process everything that had happened. Daniel and Michael were devastated, but respected their decision. "If you change your minds, we'll be here," said Daniel. "Always," Michael added. Over the following weeks, the sisters settled into a small but comfortable apartment. The orphanage was saved, and they had guaranteed work as administrators of the new foundation that had been created. But something was missing. Both missed the life they'd built in the mansion, the feelings they'd developed. Daniel reached out a few times, but always respectfully, without pressure. Michael wrote letters he never sent. Richard, meanwhile, was going through a transformation. The sisters' departure made him reflect on his manipulative behavior. He started therapy and tried to reconnect with his sons in a healthier way. A month later, during a visit to the orphanage, the sisters got a surprise. Michael was there, painting a mural on the outside wall with the children. "What are you doing here?" asked Amanda, surprised. "You said I needed the courage to fight for what I believe in," Michael replied without stopping his painting. "I believe I can make a difference here." "You're going to work at the orphanage?" "I'll teach art to the kids, therapy through painting. I already talked to Director Martha and she agreed." Amanda felt her heart race. Michael had found a way to unite his passion for art with a social purpose. "And your father?" "He didn't like it at first, but he understood. Said I inherited this from you." "From us?" "The ability to fight for what's right, not what's easy." That same week, Jessica received a job offer. Daniel was starting a digital security company and wanted her as a partner. "It's not charity," Daniel said when they met. "It's business. You have skills I don't." "Why should I believe you?" "Because I'll prove it. I'll give you 50% of the company. If it doesn't work out, you lose nothing. If it does, we win together." "What if I say no?" "Then I'll respect your decision and never bother you again." Jessica saw the sincerity in Daniel's eyes and decided to give him a chance. The digital security company quickly became a success. Jessica proved to be a natural expert, and Daniel discovered he worked better in partnership than alone. Over the following months, both couples slowly grew closer. There was no rush or pressure. Their feelings developed naturally, rooted in mutual respect and shared goals. Richard watched from afar without interfering. He had learned his lesson and was determined not to repeat past mistakes. One day, during a meeting at the security company, a serious problem arose. A competitor had discovered the vulnerabilities Jessica usually identified and was using that information to sabotage clients. "How do they know exactly where to attack?" Daniel asked, concerned. Only someone with access to our reports would know, Jessica replied. Do you think we have a spy? Worse, I think we have a very skilled hacker. Jessica worked day and night to trace the source of the attacks. When she finally succeeded, the discovery was shocking. Daniel, you need to see this, she said, pointing at the computer. What did you find? The hacker is operating from an IP I recognize. It's from my father's old company. What company? The one he had before partnering with your father. I looked into it after we learned about their business together. Daniel tensed. There was something he didn't know about their parents' history. Jessica, I need to tell you something I recently found out. My father didn't tell me the whole truth about the split with your father. What do you know? It wasn't just a business disagreement. There was sabotage. Someone was selling confidential company information to competitors. Your father accused mine of betrayal? No, my father knew yours was innocent, but he let him take the blame to protect the real traitor. Who was it? Vincent Cooper, a minority partner who worked with them. He sabotaged the company, framed your father, and then took his share when he left. Jessica felt anger and sadness at the same time. Her father had been wronged and never knew. Where is this Vincent now? He runs a consulting firm, and from what you've discovered, it seems he's still sabotaging my father's business. So he's the one attacking us? It makes sense. He knows you're William's daughter. He must be afraid you'll uncover the truth about what happened. That night, Daniel told Richard everything. Richard was devastated to learn his son knew the truth. Why didn't you ever say anything? Daniel asked. Because I was a coward. Vincent had fake evidence against your father, and I didn't have the courage to stand up to him. I let William take the blame to avoid a bigger scandal. Dad, it destroyed his life. I know. That's why I feel so guilty. William died believing I thought he was a traitor. We're fixing this now, Daniel said firmly. With the information they had, Daniel and Jessica gathered enough evidence to expose Vincent Cooper. They discovered he had orchestrated a complex corporate sabotage scheme spanning decades. When confronted, Vincent tried to negotiate, offering money for their silence. But both Daniel and Jessica knew it wasn't about money. It was about justice. What do you want? Vincent asked, cornered. We want you to publicly admit my father was innocent, Jessica said. And stop sabotaging businesses, Daniel added. I'll never admit that. Then we'll have to do it another way, Jessica said, holding up a flash drive. All the evidence is here. Documents, emails, bank records. Everything that proves his crimes. Vincent realized he was cornered. With no way out, he agreed to sign a full confession. Vincent's confession was a turning point in everyone's lives. Richard was finally able to publicly clear William Wilson's name, and the sisters discovered their father had been an honorable man until the end. He never knew I found out the truth, Richard told the sisters, tears in his eyes. He died thinking I had betrayed him. But now everyone knows he was innocent, Amanda comforted him. That doesn't bring him back, Richard replied. No, but it clears his name, and that matters, Jessica said. From that day on, Richard began working actively to honor William Wilson's memory. He founded a charity in his friend's name and started funding young entrepreneurs from low-income backgrounds. The relationships between the couples also grew stronger. Daniel and Jessica became an unbeatable team in business, while Amanda and Michael found balance between art and social purpose. 6 months after the events with Vincent, Daniel surprised everyone during a work meeting. Jessica, you've been the best partner I could have asked for, he said, interrupting the presentation. Daniel, we're in the middle of a meeting, Jessica replied, confused. Exactly. I want everyone to know you're not just my business partner. You're the person I want by my side forever. Daniel knelt and pulled out a ring. Will you marry me? Jessica was stunned. She hadn't expected this, especially in front of all their employees. Daniel, I know it's unconventional, but you've changed my life, professionally and personally. I can't imagine a future without you. Jessica looked around, saw her colleagues smiling, and realized her answer had always been obvious. Yes, she said, emotional. News of the engagement quickly reached the Hammond mansion. Michael was inspired by his brother's gesture. That weekend, he organized a special exhibition at the children's home. Every piece was inspired by Amanda's work with the kids. "This exhibition has a special name," Michael told Amanda in front of all the visitors. "It's called The Woman Who Changed My Life." "Michael, you didn't have to." "Yes, I did. Because every canvas tells a story of ours. Every color represents a moment we've shared." Michael led her to a covered painting at the center of the exhibit. "This is the main one," he said, removing the cloth. It was a portrait of Amanda, but not an ordinary one. She was painted as a guardian angel, with the children from the home surrounding her. "This is how I see you," Michael said. "An angel protecting those who need it most." Amanda was too moved to speak. "I know I'm not as wealthy as my father or as ambitious as my brother, but I love you with all the sincerity I have," Michael continued, kneeling. "Marry me?" "Yes," Amanda answered without hesitation. The two weddings were set for the same day, 6 months later. The sisters decided on a simple double ceremony in the children's home garden. Richard offered to pay for the celebration, but they refused. They wanted something intimate, with only the people who truly mattered. "Can I at least give a speech?" Richard asked. "Of course," Amanda replied. On the wedding day, the garden was decorated with simple yet beautiful flowers. The children from the home served as flower girls and ring bearers. Martha, the director, officiated the ceremony. When it was time for the speech, Richard stood up, his eyes glistening. "You four have taught me that true love can't be bought, manipulated, or forced," he began. "It can only be earned with honesty, respect, and patience. I've made many mistakes, trying to control what couldn't be controlled. But you've shown me that the best things in life happen when we let them follow their natural course. William, my old friend, I know you'd be proud of your daughters. They've become extraordinary women, and my sons are better men because of them. May the four of you build families rooted in truth, respect, and genuine love. And may you never forget that family isn't just those who share our blood, but those who share our values." After the vows, there was a simple but joyful celebration. The children played, the adults talked, and for the first time in a long while, everyone felt truly at peace. Months later, both businesses flourished. Daniel and Jessica's digital security company became a market leader, while Michael's art therapy program revolutionized care for at-risk children. Amanda took over as general coordinator of the William Wilson Foundation, which had already helped hundreds of young entrepreneurs. Richard learned to be a present, but not overbearing father-in-law, respecting the couple's independence. A year after the weddings, Jessica announced she was pregnant. Soon after, Amanda also discovered she was expecting. "Our children will grow up together," Amanda said, emotional. "Like we did," Jessica replied. "Even better, they'll grow up with love, stability, and a big family who cares for them," Amanda added. When Richard learned he'd be a grandfather, he cried with joy. He had finally found the redemption he'd longed for. "I'm going to be the best grandfather in the world," he promised. "We know you will," Daniel said, smiling. "But no manipulations this time," Michael teased. "I promise," Richard laughed. 2 years later, the family had grown significantly. Jessica and Daniel had a daughter, Olivia, while Amanda and Michael had a son, William, named after the grandfather he'd never met. The children grew up in an environment of love and prosperity, but were always mindful of the importance of helping others. They regularly visited the orphanage, where they were treated like family. Richard became the devoted grandfather he'd always dreamed of being. He spent entire afternoons playing with his grandchildren, telling stories and teaching important values. "Grandpa, why did you and Grandpa William fight?" Olivia, then 4 years old, asked. "Because I was too proud to admit I was wrong," Richard answered honestly. "But were you friends?" "We were the best friends in the world." "Then why didn't you make up?" "Because I let pride speak louder than friendship. But I learned that was a mistake." "And now?" "Now I take care of his daughters as if they were my own. It's my way of apologizing to him." The William Wilson Foundation became one of the most respected in the country, Hundreds of young people had benefited from scholarships and job opportunities. The orphanage became a national model, with modern facilities and qualified professionals. Children received quality education, art therapy, and psychological support. Daniel and Jessica expanded their company internationally while upholding the ethical values they'd learned. Michael became a recognized artist, but never abandoned his social work. Amanda specialized in non-profit management and became a consultant for other foundations. Her life experience made her unique in her field. 5 years after the weddings, the family threw a grand celebration at the orphanage to honor all their achievements. It was a party for the whole community, filled with music, food, and joy. During the celebration, Richard approached William Wilson's grave, which had been moved to a special spot in the orphanage garden. "My friend, I did it," he said, moved. "Your daughters are happy, thriving, and still honoring your memory. My children became men of character beside them. I can't undo the mistakes of the past, but I can ensure the future is different. Your grandchildren will grow up knowing what an extraordinary man you were. Thank you for forgiving me through your daughters. Thank you for giving me the chance to be a better man." Amanda and Jessica stepped closer, listening to his final words. "He can't hear you, but we can," said Amanda, placing a hand on Richard's shoulder. "And we know our father would be proud of you," Jessica added. "Do you really think so?" "We're certain, because you did what he always wanted. You protected his daughters and helped them find happiness." Richard smiled through his tears. "You're my daughters now too." "We know," they replied in unison, embracing their father-in-law. The celebration lasted late into the night, filled with music, dancing, and countless stories. The children from the orphanage played with Olivia and William, forming bonds that would last a lifetime. As the evening came to a close, the two families said their goodbyes with the warmth of knowing they had found true happiness, not through manipulation or money, but through genuine love, forgiveness, and the determination to do good. Years passed and the story became legend in their community. People spoke of the billionaire who tried to buy love, but ultimately learned that real love can only be earned through honesty and respect. The Wilson sisters became living proof that success in life doesn't require sacrificing one's values. Their husbands learned that true success comes from making a difference in people's lives. And Richard Hammond became living proof that it's never too late to change, to ask for forgiveness, and to become a better person. The St. James Children's Home continued to thrive. The businesses grew ethically and sustainably, and the families lived happily, knowing they had discovered life's true meaning, to love and be loved genuinely. Olivia and William grew up hearing the story of how their parents met, learning that true love always triumphs, even when faced with seemingly impossible obstacles. And so, a story that began with a controversial auction became a beautiful lesson about family, forgiveness, and the transformative power of real love. The end. Now tell me, what did you think of this touching story? Do you believe true love can overcome any obstacle, just as it did for Amanda, Jessica, Daniel, and Michael? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartwarming stories.